Welcome to New Life Live with Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's today's host, Chris Williams.
Welcome to New Life Live. Again, Chris Williams, marriage and family therapist here. I'm also sharing studio time with Dr. Alice Benton, licensed psychologist. How you doing?
Hey, Chris. Having a great morning so far.
Awesome. So good to see you.
You too.
And my fellow marriage and family therapist, Marc Cameron. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Chris.
All right, Marc. What's on your mind today? Give us some wisdom here.
On my mind today is appetites. So a few weeks ago, my wife started on the keto diet, and I wanted to try it out with her. I say try it out because I didn't quite make it. But if you know about the keto diet, it's really about switching your fuel system from carbs to fats. And so you have to learn how to reduce carbs and sugars are carbs for us. Now, there's lots of foods that have sugars in, and they're designed to keep us addicted. So it's really hard to figure out, how to cut sugars out of your diet. But I did it. I did it for 2 weeks. And what I noticed about myself was that my appetite actually decreased and my cravings for sugar actually decreased too. I would get this late night sugar craving around about 9 or 10 where I wanted to eat some chocolate. But when I was doing this diet, that completely went away. And that got me thinking about other things that we get fed. And I was thinking about, we have a news feed. The media feeds us news, and we have these dramatic headlines, and they're designed to get us to click on and keep going back to the story to build anxiety. In social media, we have a social media feed, and the social media companies have figured out what we like, and it's designed to get us to keep on continuously scrolling. And so whatever you feed yourself, you'll increase your appetite for, because wherever your attention goes, your appetite grows for it. And so my challenge here is for listeners to think about, does your family or your work get more of your attention? Or do you allow your eyes to look at your spouse lovingly? Or are they wandering to members of the opposite sex or pornography? Or are you reading more about, this is me here, reading more about your favorite sports team, right, than you are reading the Bible? And James 1:15 says, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's fully grown, gives birth to death. And so we all have appetites, and they become unhealthy at times. So if you know you have an unhealthy appetite for something, consider how you might be feeding that appetite, and it may be time to do a fast.
Oh, that's really good.
And when we check on our willingness and ability to fast, it really reveals a lot about how addicted am I to this thing? Can I let go of it for a couple days or a couple of weeks? And growing self-control, it just generates character growth in so many areas of our life and allows us to release what is not life-giving and to set to the side those things that are detracting from our life.
That's so good. And I just think about some of the emotions or perspectives that we feed. Are we feeding fear and anxiety? Are we feeding depression, a negative outlook on life? Are we feeding, it could be like you mentioned, pornography. Are we feeding lust? Are we feeding greeds? And it's so important to see where our attention is drawing us into.
Well, and in the scripture, oftentimes prayer is coupled with fasting. And so if you've got a problem that you're praying about, think about what may I need to fast from to discipline myself and also reduce that craving that's going to help, that prayer.
I think that's so important. The other aspect I want to mention in that fasting is, you mentioned it, Alice, that sometimes it reveals our weakness. In our needs and our vulnerabilities. And sometimes we need help. If you are struggling in a deeply emotional aspect of your life, whether it be fear, anxiety, depression, these are all topics that we're going to address head on in the Emotional Freedom Intensive. And again, that is a one-day intensive online September 15th. Again, area of your life that you keep circling the mountain on that you can't figure out, let us help you break through that with the Emotional Freedom Intensive. We'll be right back.
Restore gave me strength. It gave me more belief in my faith. I met up with a group of women that are going through things that they had no control over.
If you've been affected by betrayal, an emotional or physical affair, or pornography, the Restore Intensive will equip you with support and tools to help you through.
When two people want to do their part, we can be restored. But if they don't, we can still be restored. We are not stuck because someone else made a decision. That God lets us weigh in on how we want to walk out our lives. Our wellness does not hinge on another person's decision.
The Restore Intensive is coming to Washington, D.C. November 1st through the 3rd. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and use the discount code NLL to save $50.
I've had a great experience at Restore.
1-800-NEW-LIFE and the discount code NLL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. We are so glad that you are with us today, and we are also glad that Dixie is with us today. So, Dixie, listening to us in Walla Walla, Washington, online. I love saying that. That's fun to say, right? So, Dixie in Walla Walla. Tell us what's going on today.
Good morning. Just want to thank you guys for this wonderful ministry. I don't listen as much as I would like to, but I'm always blessed and feel enlightened afterwards, and just really appreciate it. Want to make sure that you can hear me okay, because I have my phone on speaker. My husband is on the call with me. Is
excellent.
This okay?
Yeah, totally okay. We love having both of you on the call.
Okay, great. So I'm calling in regards to my older brother. He is 73. Let's see.
That's okay.
Yeah, 73. And he has been diagnosed with a delusional disorder. He is exhibiting, or appears to be exhibiting, 3 different types. So he has a mixed erotomanic, which isn't showing as much as it was, grandiose, and persecutory or paranoia.
Yeah.
And it's complicated. His mental illness is complicated by the fact that he is a type 1 diabetic since the age of 20.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah.
And he's
has a history of narcissism.
He also has macular degeneration, so he is legally blind.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, Dixie, how long ago was he diagnosed with these mental health disorders?
Well, it was just within the past few weeks.
Okay.
It has become an issue because on in the wee hours of the morning of June 4th, he fell, and all of a sudden he was so weak he was not able to get up, and he was able to call 911, and they did a medical evaluation as well as a mental health evaluation on him? Yes.
Okay, yeah.
He, at this point, he has, so they took him into ER, and from there he went to a rehab center.
Uh-huh.
He was there for about 30 days when Medicare quit covering him because he refused to participate in the PT.
If I might say something, he's a retired EMT.
Okay.
But he's very bright. His IQ is probably in the 150s, and he knows a lot of medical language, and he has diagnosed himself his own issue and believes that he needs a blood transfusion, and he refuses any other kind of treatment that the doctors want to do with him, even though his medical tests indicate that no, a blood transfusion is not
going to help him.
All.
So with what you guys are struggling with, what's the question for us?
Well, I've been reviewing an article on delusional disorder, and it says the best thing that family can do is to encourage him to get the treatment he needs. So
yes.
My sister and I and my younger brother are all working. We're trying to provide support as best we're able to. Currently, he is homeless.
Okay. So your brother is homeless right now at 73?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's in a hotel room paid for by the Salvation Army
For
Okay.
1 week.
even though he has an income of about $5,000 a month through Social Security and a pension.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, so let me get to it because we're going to run
Yeah.
out of time here.
Right.
What's
So we want to
what's the
know-
question? Yeah, go for it.
How do we encourage him to get the treatment when he needs, when he doesn't believe he has? I mean, he believes that he's totally fine and that he's just smarter than all the doctors, and that he thought that the hospital
Yeah,
had
so-
become
So,
adversarial towards him.
Dixie, when he was recently hospitalized, was there a social worker assigned to his case?
There was, but he did nothing to help.
Okay, so
I mean, he tried to help some, but
He was. We were not. All of us siblings gathered for a few days in Colorado, where he is located, to try to resolve some of the issues. And while we were there, or before my husband and I were able to get there, my sister and brother talked to the social worker, and he provided no help as far as.
have you guys given Adult Protective Services a call?
No.
Okay, that's where I would start here, because your brother is at risk here. I mean, he's got these very significant mental health conditions where he cannot make decisions for himself. So he likely needs somebody appointed to be able to do that. And there are people who are appointed by the state, by the county, to be able to do that. So I would start there, and I would, and then you're likely going to be assigned a social worker through that, and then you could probably have a point of contact and start to push more.
The NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has groups and resources designed for exactly this kind of situation, because with that level of delusion, it can feel impossible to convince a person that they need help when they think only the blood transfusion is going to help. And so a conservatorship is what part of what Marc is talking about, where a family member can also be assigned to gain some legal power and legal right to help make decisions for your brother, and to be able to interface with the doctors, who can be the ones that he might believe in the doctors more sometimes. So that I would want you to get in touch as well with a psychiatrist, because if you can inform a psychiatrist what the situation is, they are skilled in being able to speak with someone with those kind of delusions that are going on and help convince them that they can talk through. If he thinks he needs the blood transfusion, well, come on in, let's talk that through. Let's figure out how we can get you to the help that you need. But then establishing relationship and some trust to be able to probably get him the medication that he needs to clear up the delusion that he has. So NAMI, a conservatorship, and I want you to look up the book. We don't carry it, but it's I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help, written by just this kind of psychiatrist who helps folks struggling with delusions.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, because
What is the name of the author again?
It's I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help. I'll look up the author's name.
well, and Dixie, the struggle here, this is so painfully common. Whether it be a person struggling with a really high-level mental health illness, whether it be a person struggling with addiction, is how do we help people who don't want help? Well, we need to start with that reality of our own limitation, as painful as that is, that there's only so much we can do. But I love where Marc and Alice are taking you, because there are things that can be done in this situation.
Yeah, with your brother, he's in a high-risk category here,
Yeah.
and the state has set up protections to, or supports, I should say, to help people in this situation.
Yeah.
The author is Xavier Amador. Xavier Amador. Dixie.
What's the name again?
Xavier Amador.
Can you spell the
Last name Amador.
Okay. We are running into a problem with Colorado. They declare him competent to
Okay.
make his own treatment decisions, and our hands have been tied to do anything.
Dixie, adding additional calls to Adult Protective Services like Marc suggested, it increases that paper trail because he is decompensating. So whereas a week ago or in rehab, he might have been presenting much better, but that's deteriorating. So adding in continual calls to get new evaluations of your brother will eventually help clear up that he is becoming gravely disabled.
Yeah. And And like I said, you're doing everything you can. And Alice, it's so important. Keep following up with this in those protections and services that are there. Not that they work perfectly, or sometimes not that they work well, but they're there, so we want to utilize it where they can. And Dixie, I just want to remind you and your husband of this really hard truth. 2 sick people don't make one well. And so these disorders have a way to be contagious in sneaky ways. And that is your brother's very, very painful, difficult situation becomes your painful situation. So as where you may not be paranoid, now you're stuck in anxiety. And so being able to care for ourselves, being able to get the help that we need. And I love the recommendation for National Alliance on Mental Illness that offers support groups to know that you're not alone in this situation, that there is help in this situation, but that you and your husband can really circle the wagons on your own life as well as you're struggling and grieving through the process of how to best help your brother, but also not losing yourself in the process at the same time.
When a person is so blind to what they're going through and so deluded in what they're going through, sometimes it's only ongoing crises where there's increasing pain and increasing loss that gets them to the place where they're finally willing to accept help. But it's so difficult for you family members to have to watch that happen or allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Well, and we're glad that we can lean on the Lord.
Yes.
He definitely is a strength through this.
Yes, absolutely. And that's, we don't call it out enough, in my opinion, about what a phenomenal resource God is. And it reminds me of one of my favorite prayers that listen, God has to have a lot of patience with me because I can be like a petulant child. But when I have a problem that I'm overwhelmed with, I like this prayer. God, you've got a problem. So, and most of that is, God, you've got a problem and it's me. And so let's try to figure this out, and but really leaning into our faith, leaning into our spiritual connection with God and others is such an amazing resource in these seemingly impossible situations.
Yep. Without me, you can do nothing, Jesus said, and so He wants to be our strength in everything.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for those resources.
Yeah, no problem. And we're also going to send you guys a copy of Take Your Life Back. And knowing that, again, when things go out of control or we become powerless in a situation, there's still a way for our lives to be moving forward. And there's just some great truths in that book that can lead you guys in that direction. So, Dixie and husband, thank you guys so much for calling in today. And we really do cheer you on, pray you on in this really painful and difficult situation. But thank you for being with us today. I want to go right back to the phones. We're going to go to Ralph, listening in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on our app. One of the great ways to connect with us. So, Ralph, thank you for connecting with us. Thank you for listening on the app. Tell us what's going on today.
Ralph, if you're on mute, check that. We can't hear you yet.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, it's me.
There we go.
Hello,
Ralph. How's it going?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good now that we got a good connection with you.
Yes, I've been waiting.
All right.
I've been going back and forth. Okay.
Yeah, talk to us. What's happening?
Okay. A few months ago, I was listening to the show, and you guys gave some advice regarding some situation I was going through, intimacy in a marriage, lack of sex, things like that. And I was about to make some bad decisions and start listening to the show. You gave some advice. I took it. Things are way better now.
Oh, awesome. Well, before you move on, I'm so sorry to interrupt, because I always love these stories. What was the advice you took, and how did it get better?
Well, you had a show. I forgot. It must have been around maybe like February or something like that. I think it was right before Valentine's weekend, and there was a call that I called, and they were saying there was the same problem, and you guys advised them that they should take the wife on vacation and whatever it was, be nice to her, buy her flowers, take her out. So it was something like that, similar to that you guys was talking about. And at the time, my relationship was dry. There was no intimacy since probably before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, wow,
and I went, sat down, and explained. Actually, I took the show, I took the link and texted to her, and then she listens to it. And then after that, we sat down, we worked things out. So we're in much better places right now.
That's great. Well, let's do this. So, Ralph, I'm about to head to a break right now.
Okay.
But I love that you took advice of injecting romance and pursuit and desire back into the relationship. But we also want to get to what you're struggling with today. And we're going to get to that right after this break. Thank you for calling in. We'll be right back.
When you give to the New Life Scholarship Fund, you're giving someone hope for a brighter future.
I was kind of in the closet and hit with my struggle. Your donation really made the difference, especially in my situation, because I would have getting laid off from my job.
At the New Life Intensives, hurting people are able to begin a new path towards healing and freedom that has an effect on all of those around them.
I think the people who support New Life financially are people that I'll never know. You know, I'll never be able to thank them personally for the gift that they gave to us. Their giving saved me, my husband, and our family from being torn apart.
To help hurting people to connect to the help they need, make your gift to the Scholarship Fund at newlife.com or by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE and specifying scholarships.
Someone called and sponsored me to come this weekend. Whoever that is, just know that you saved a life. Literally, you saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. Glad that you're with us. We're talking with Ralph in Philadelphia. And Ralph, you were talking about, hey, you listened to the show earlier in the year. You injected some life back into your marriage. So where are you at today and how can we help you?
Okay. Today, like I said, I'm in a much better place, but now I have people that are struggling with the same problem. I have two friends. One live in Effort, Pennsylvania, and the other one live in Strasburg. So I have two questions for you guys. I was listening to the show earlier. There was the first caller that called, and that was a woman explaining her problem in the marriage. Her husband was mistreating her, and she wants a divorce or separation.
Yeah.
But she said it was due to intimacy. And my thing is, because I have two guys at work that's going through the same problem, and these are Christian guys.
Yeah.
But first question is, because she said there was intimacy, that was on her part. When someone is married and they try to do the good work, to me, that's a very dangerous life. If they have a wife and they're Christians and there is no sex, what is the choice of a man at that point? Because you can't cheat, and to me, that's like putting the man's life in jeopardy to lose his soul because temptations are very high.
For sure.
So my first question is, what is the choice of a man who's married and don't want to step out and the wife controls the sex and there is no sex? And the second question, They live in Effort and Strasburg. Do you have anyone where that's, I know it's very expensive these days, but anything that's affordable, people they can see one-on-one that they can go through if you have that information?
Yeah. Well, here's the good news is that I know we have a nationwide network of therapists and couples therapists that I'm sure in the state of Pennsylvania we have someone that they can connect with, whether that be online or maybe possibly in person. I have no idea if it's in that specific area, but we can connect you to resources. And Ralph, there's just one thing I want to point out, and you're not doing anything wrong or bad. It's just something that I see is a language problem. And the language problem is this. It is the conflation of intimacy and sex. And so one of the things that we're big here at New Life is really separating those two things out. Because intimacy is a much, much, much bigger thing. It's a much bigger experience than just sex. But Mark, I wanted to hand this over to you.
You must have read my mind, Chris, because I was actually going to say to you, Ralph, I'm so glad that you finally used the word sex, because at first you were talking about intimacy, and the other caller who you were referring to said intimacy too. And it's an intimacy problem, and intimacy and sex are two different things. And what you're talking about is a real issue here. If there is a lack of sex in the marriage and one person has a higher sex drive than the other, what do they do? It is a struggle, but it's an intimacy issue, which is what Chris is saying here. Sex is actually a byproduct of intimacy. And intimacy starts with emotions. And it's difficult because at the beginning of a relationship, usually there's this physical attraction. And the physical attraction draws two people together, and they want to give their bodies to each other. But as a relationship develops and matures, that infatuation part and that sexual drive toward each other, that reduces, and then the relationship develops, and each person has problems, and you have differences, and you have to learn how to work those out. And learning to work those out is how you build true intimacy, true emotional intimacy in the marriage, and then sex becomes a byproduct of that. And so what you were saying that you did with your wife when there was a lack of sex happening in the marriage is you took the advice to pursue her. You took her out on a date. You shared the show with her. You showed her that you were interested more in just her body, but more into about her. And something that we say on the show, I've heard it say before, I think Larry Crabb came up with this. Intimacy, another way to say intimacy is into you, I see, or into me, you see. And it's just a good reminder to think about. It's learning, how do we get to those depths with somebody else so that we can join in all areas.
And it has to do, Ralph, with repairing the emotional connection first in order to later repair the sexual connection. So if your friends started the conversation with their wives of, hey, we're not having enough sex, how can we fix that? That's an off-putting way to go about it. But rather to initiate by saying, I really miss our connection. And I realize that we're kind of withdrawn from each other. I want to get to know you again. I want to know what's going on in your head and in your heart. I want to strengthen the bond between the two of us. And couples can do that by reading a book together, like How We Love, by entering into couples counseling, by coming to one of our intimacy in marriage intensives, because there's probably something else broken in the connection that then leads to the wives withdrawing from sexual intimacy. But ladies, it's an area we have to be careful with as well, because we can neglect that part of our marriage and let our lives get busy with rearing children. Our bodies change as we get older. There are all kinds of reasons why we might withdraw from that intimacy.
And I just think it's really important to recognize that men and women, husbands and wives, and individuals all experience sex differently. And knowing how the other experiences it is really important. Because one of the things I say, especially for women, is if it's not safe, it can't be intimate. And so that area of vulnerability is something that we need to move into, and it can get complicated, and it requires something like professional help and guidance to get through. But Ralph, we're going to send you a copy of Intimacy in Marriage, and hopefully that'll be incredibly helpful. We'll be right back.
I'm addicted to oxycodone. I've been on oxycodone almost 3 years.
Addiction affects millions of people every year.
I've been on it for a long time, and I need to get off.
New Life can connect you with some of the finest Christian inpatient treatment programs in the country that work with people from all backgrounds and beliefs.
First, it was for back pain, and I was on it for a long time. And then I currently just had shoulder surgery.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction to illegal or prescription drugs, alcohol, or dealing with an eating disorder, it's time to seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers all around the country.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or visit us online at newlife.com. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Club New Life changes lives.
I think I go way back to listening to New Life, learning so much from it, and then becoming a Club New Life member.
Club New Life is a monthly giving family that helps New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people.
You know, I'm so thankful because you know why I keep giving? Because I keep learning, and I'm so thankful for all the lives that you touch every day and the people's lives. So when I get to still hear the radio show, it's just so encouraging to my heart.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
And you know one reason I give? Because I feel like sometimes I'm hiding behind a counselor's couch listening to all this great information and not paying. So my guilt of this great advice is alleviated by being a Club New Life member.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. And together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. We are so glad that you're with us today. We're just talking at break about the complexities of sexual intimacy in marriage. And Mark, you were making a really good point about this both and struggle.
Yeah, and men and women are built very differently. Men have a constant buildup that they need to release, which is driven by testosterone, whereas women, their sex drives work on a cycle, and it's several different hormones. And men have spontaneous desire, but women have responsive desire, meaning that they respond to a man pursuing them and not, groping them in that kind of way, but pursuing them emotionally. And so a lot of times men can assume that women are aroused in the same way that they are aroused. Then when they don't respond to that, it feels frustrating and they shut down, and then they think, well, now you're withholding from me, when really the wife may say the opposite. You're withholding emotional intimacy from me.
Oh, that's
so
really
I don't
good.
feel like giving my body to you.
Yeah.
And if we're not continuously nurturing a marriage, it does go into decay mode. And we have to be cautious as we're raising children that all of our attention and focus doesn't just go to children or things outside the marriage, because that intimate bond with our spouse, it needs ongoing nurturing and care.
Absolutely. And that's just such a huge reminder. If your marriage is struggling, and if your sex life in your marriage is struggling, Intimacy in Marriage on October 25th in Dallas is a phenomenal way and a really safe way to jump in and restart your marriage, to give life to it, to give vitality to you, and just to simply grow into greater fulfillment and meaning in your marriage. So check that out. Intimacy in Marriage will be in Dallas on October 25th. And again, I can't encourage you enough. Wherever you are in your marriage, this weekend will be transformative. Also, I want to talk about something that's coming up October 5th, and that is our Life Recovery Conference. Some of the things that we'll be addressing are codependency, depression, anxiety, but also we'll be addressing addictions and how they happen and where they happen and how they relate to trauma. So a lot there. So check out the Life Recovery Conference. With that, we want to go right back to the phones. We're going to go to Ray in Atlanta, Georgia, listening on Sirius XM. Ray, how you doing today?
Thumbs up on this Monday. Hope you guys are having a good one. But I know one thing, you guys help us all a lot. That's for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, thumbs up right back at you, man. 2 thumbs up.
Thank you.
So if you're listening on YouTube, you can see it right now. All right. So, Ray, talk to us. What's going on?
I got an interesting question and dilemma, or it's not really a dilemma. It's just maybe you can help explain it. I'm a very much of an introvert, but I can be like an extrovert, especially around people. But I enjoy my time alone immensely, and it's something where my wife can't understand it, and we've been married for 35 years. And are you guys familiar, like, with Freddie Freeman, the first baseman for the Dodgers, and what just happened with his son?
Yeah, I just saw a thing on it on ESPN about how his son had that medical condition that became life-threatening. It's like a neurological degenerative thing, weird anomaly where his body started shutting down.
Exactly. So I'm watching the ball game the other night on the East Coast here, but it's a West Coast game, and he's just coming up. He gets a standing ovation, and I just get tears in my eyes, and I seem to be able to experience life through other people's emotions, whether it's on TV or it's in person, and I always lean towards the people with, on the fringe. I could be in a restaurant and I could see a busboy there, and then everybody's ignoring him. I'll give him a tip,
Yeah.
And things like that nature, and the aloneness. And, as a Christian, I do believe our relationship is above and beyond, without doubt, with Jesus Christ, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. And I gain such strength from that, and this aloneness in this time that I have alone. As I'm 66 and a half, and I just retired a couple years ago. And I just look at it as something that's it presents an interesting situation. I don't know if you guys can explain this, because my childhood was very similar. I had very little social interaction as far as going out or at school. I was very shy. I walked home alone. All these kind of different things, but yet I can be very loving towards other people, and feel these emotions and stuff. So I don't know where that comes from in that way.
Well, and what's the question for us?
Well, the question is, in that situation, is it possible to be an introvert and an extrovert at the same time?
Yes, is the easy answer to that.
Okay.
So I'll answer that question because it's the easy one, and I'm going to have my wonderful co-hosts answer the more complicated and difficult ones. But I want to give an awareness, but it's a question. It's a Bible question, Ray. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. I don't want too much pressure on it. But in the beginning of Genesis chapter 1 and 2, where God says all of this creation is good, in fact, it's very good, he said there is one thing that's not good. Do you know what that one thing is?
Well, I can imagine that the biggest thing I get from other people is you can't be alone.
That's it.
Bingo,
You nailed it.
Ray, bingo.
It's not good for man to be alone. And we know that aloneness comes with a lot of suffering, right, Mark?
Yeah. So to jump in where you started here, Chris, it is possible to be in between. Introversion, extroversion are on a spectrum, and there's a term called an ambivert, meaning that somebody is kind of in the middle of those two. Now, here's what I want to kind of tease out a little bit. There's a difference between being shy here, Ray, and being an introvert. Introversion means that somebody just regains their energy from being by themselves, and they lose energy when they're around other people. It doesn't necessarily mean that that they're afraid of other people. Now, shyness often comes from a social anxiety. And that's fear-based, and usually that's linked to something that's happened in a person's life. So those two are a little bit different. The other thing I want to point out that I think may be true for you, is that sensitivity is also on a spectrum. And people who are on the high end of the spectrum, there's this term called a highly sensitive person. And what you're describing here, Ray, where you can see other people and feel their pain even through a television screen, or you can notice the busboy on the other end of the restaurant and nobody's paying attention to them. People who are highly sensitive pick up on those things in other people and they feel them deeply. And so I wonder if, you are somewhat in the middle maybe on the introversion extroversion scale and you're an ambivert, but I think you're likely a highly sensitive person, and that's where this is kind of confusing you between, am I an extrovert, but then I feel deeply for others.
And Marc, what are the benefits of being a highly sensitive person?
Well, it's estimated that there's probably about 20 to 25% of people who are highly sensitive. And this is just God's stamp on you. It's not something that you've chosen. You are just this way. And so it's important that you don't use that as an excuse to shy away from people. Because like you were saying here, Chris, it's not good for man to be alone. So people who are HSPs need to recognize this about themselves, but not use it to keep themselves withdrawn from others. But also to know this part about yourself, to know that you might be more drawn in to helping others at times when maybe you shouldn't be helping others, or feeling more pain when really it's
that sounds like you
got
to really work on boundaries there.
Yeah, exactly. And you've just got to understand these things about yourself. The more aware you can be about yourself, the better equipped you can be to be able to help others. And it's also important to let people in your life who are close to you know this about you, so that they can understand what's going on, because they may label you as too sensitive, and you're not too sensitive. It's just something that's going on the inside, and that's the way you are. You can't help it.
You said you said your wife doesn't understand, Ray. And so I also want you to consider if it might feel safer to have empathic emotions for other people you're not connected with emotionally, but it might not feel safe to let your guard down with your wife, which could be connected to your parents. If your parents struggle to see you and connect to your heart, it makes it hard for us to do that in our most intimate relationships.
So, Ray, we're going to come back to this because you hear the music, and we're going to head to a break. But I want to remind our listeners out there that we have a huge video library brought to you by the generosity of Club New Life members, but accessible to all. There is over 550 teaching videos from our radio team, counselors in our system, and you can find it at newlife.com, and go to the Listen tab, and then it'll pull up this great resources of videos. I just want to remind our listeners out there that we have that for you. Go check it out, and we'll be back right after this.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are. Dr. Heidi Summers on coaching.
A lot of people don't understand the difference between counseling and coaching. Coaches can help you with strategizing. Not everyone is in a crisis or recovering from a trauma. A lot of people just need help getting to where they want to be, and they don't know how to do that. And so it's helpful to have a third party come in to give objective feedback, set goals, create accountability, and help you walk out what your goals actually are.
If you need a coach for life, your career, relationships, your health and fitness, leadership, and more, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been screened and certified with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
Coaches are intended to help you live in the present and goal set toward what it is you want for the future.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and talk to us about getting a New Life coach today. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. We are so glad that you're with us, and we're glad that Ray is with us. And Ray was talking about, like, he sees the outsider, the outlier, the lonely, the suffering. Yeah. So he has this high sensitivity to the world around him.
And that can be hard for boys because in our society it's socially acceptable for a female to have sensitivity, but for boys it's not so much, and they can be laughed at, and they can feel like they're pushed to the edge. Is that what might have happened to you, Ray? Was that your experience as a kid? Were you sensitive and felt like you were on the outside with the other boys?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. What happened, though, is I would say later, like in like middle school, when people's personalities start to get bigger, and I didn't go to any kind of dances. I didn't even kiss my first girl till I was 23, and I married her. And I didn't even know how people had babies till I was 19. And so, but on the aloneness end, this is what I don't understand, is that when you feel like you're, in society and everything, they don't get you in a way, and then you feel this, or you feel this thing from other people where they feel like they're detached from society, that's where the Holy Spirit just comes in and just fills you up, and you walk like Jesus. And, Jesus, of anything, he was always concerned about the least people.
For sure,
and that's and it's just, I guess, it's just overwhelming, and it's beautiful in a way. So,
well, and Ray, you're speaking just to that. Is that a person that carries those sensitivities to the others in the world around them also carry a higher capacity for love, a higher capacity for compassion, and a higher capacity oftentimes to serve.
Oh, yes, I agree, because to me, it's the thing about serving is so much important instead of, then, the relationship thing is where I have a problem with, is because then people want to see you more and, and all that stuff. And then you got to, it's almost, and that's where the boundaries come in.
Absolutely.
And that's what I don't understand too,
Well, here's the other thing, Ray, is that what is happening inside of you when you see them, it has already happened inside of you. Does that make sense?
No, go ahead and explain that one.
When you recognize that outsider, as Marc was alluding to in your life, that is a part of you that is also feeling the hurt.
Oh, okay, I see.
That's right. Because you already told us really clearly about you growing up. No one was tuned in to Ray. No one was paying attention to Ray, and so you're feeling and carrying that loneliness, and when you see it in others, it triggers that similar feeling inside of you.
Okay, I understand. I see that, but Jesus, the Holy Spirit comes in you, and
for sure
fills you, and it gives you strength to overcome that human connection where you're saying, "Gosh, your Father in heaven has given you so much love."
For sure, and I believe wholeheartedly in that. But I'm also going to ask you another biblical question.
Okay.
In the New Testament, when the body of Christ is referred to, what's it referring to?
It's referring to all believers together.
Other people, yes, other people. Right. So we see this in the greatest commandment, that the resource that God is pointing us to is, of course, himself. But it's also like saying, hey, but also one of the major resources I've given you all is each other. And I think that there's a longing in you for deeper connection that isn't being met.
Ray, I'm a fellow introvert, And I think part of our sanctification process is the willingness to keep getting out of our comfort zone, to risk going deep with other people, not just recognizing those other outliers and giving the tip or tearing up when you see the baseball game, but letting people like your wife and other men in your church community get to know who you are. Now, I would bet you experienced hurt through that time in middle school. And so you may not feel compelled to let people really get to know you. And it might not come naturally to you. I prefer being alone myself, Ray. I'm much more comfortable by myself. But in order to fully live out the Christian life, we need to be known and know other people so we can get to know their deeper needs as well, to keep meeting each other's needs. And so I want to challenge you to even consider trying out counseling, because sometimes we have to start with the safety of a professional relationship and letting a professional get to know us so we can then transfer that process to our spouse or to other men in the community.
Well, and I also wonder here, Ray, too, if you were sheltered a bit here, maybe by your mom, because you talked about not even really knowing how babies were formed until you were, I think you said 19 years old.
Right.
Did you have a parent who sheltered you?
Well, I had I don't know so much he sheltered, because my sister, who was 2 years younger than me, she's just the opposite of me. Mm-hmm. But I think what happened is, for some reason, I feel closer to women than I do men, because the way in playing the sports I did and everything, and they would, talk about women and everything, it was just, I would walk away from it. And so I always feel closer to women than I do men for some reason.
Well, but that makes sense, because women generally communicate on a higher emotional level than men in general. And so, yeah, when you're, like you said, you notice this more when you got out of middle school, you got into middle school, right? When it's less socially acceptable for a boy to cry when they fall over and hurt themselves. And then you see these boys who start to jockey for attention, right? And manhood. And so, yeah, it makes sense that if you are a highly sensitive person, that you would connect more with females.
Right. And so you just recommend me to see a counselor? I tried to see a counselor with my wife.
Yes, but here's what I would also recommend, because I think there is still a lonely boy inside of you walking around.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I would recommend some individual, but you're set up perfectly. 1 month away is the Emotional Freedom Workshop, where you're going to be able to do a little bit deeper dive into your own story, into your own process, as well as get in a group with other men that allows you to process it at a deeper level. So as much as that can sound intimidating, or maybe it sounds exciting, I don't know, but Ray, the Emotional Freedom Workshop, again, is designed specifically for you and what you're going through and how to get to that next level. And the more that we can connect with ourselves and understand our own story and what's going on inside of us, the easier it is to connect with the people around us. And the more that we have a higher level of acceptance for ourselves and what's going on inside, the easier it is to accept other people and connect with them. And so I want to really, really encourage you in that way to attend the Emotional Freedom Workshop.
And there's other emotionally intelligent men out there too here, Ray, and other men who are in touch with their emotions. And I think probably some of your growth is learning how to connect with other men who on that level too.
Yeah. So, Ray, thank you so much for calling in today. We're going to send you the Emotional Freedom Workbook to get you started on that journey. And for those that are out there that find themselves as a highly sensitive person, which is just a person that absorbs the world more acutely, more intensely, that is not a weakness, that is an absolute strength for a greater capacity, oftentimes I see with creativity, for empathy and compassion, for care and love, but it does need boundaries, that's for sure. We are so glad that you are with us today, so glad that we can help you. If you want to get a hold of one of our great resources, give us a call, 1-800-NEW-LIFE, or visit us online at newlife.com. And if you want to attend the Emotional Freedom Workshop, please sign up today. And thank you for being with us. Take care.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Thanks for watching today. We love helping people. I hope you sense that. And we know that there's always hope if you find the right resource. Now, if something we've said to somebody else applies to you, that's fantastic. That's what we're hoping for. But also, if you want to join us directly, you can call 1-800-229-3000 between 1 and 3 Eastern Time, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. Those are the best times to get through. And while you're here on YouTube, check out these other videos that we've done to help people see where they could grow or a different path to take. And if you do that, would you give us a thumbs up on the video, and please subscribe to this channel. There are many ways that we can help you outside of the radio program, and it's very hard for some to pick up a phone and dial 1-800-NEW-LIFE. But when you do, we put you in touch with somebody who cares about you, knows all the resources out there, and they're going to find the best for you. There is no reason to struggle alone. I hope to see you tomorrow. Hope you'll invite somebody else to come and join that maybe needs just a little bit of help along the way. I'll see you next time.